Welcome everybody to podcast number 2. I'm Steve.
I'm Gray. And we're going to guest talk even more guitar than last time, right, Steve?
Absolutely, it's jam-packed.
Sounds good. Okay, let's go.
Actually, you've got what's on your list? What's top of your list?
Top of my list is a speaker thing, but I don't know. That might just be pure chance.
But your history now with speakers is, if you're thinking of my experience with speakers,
promiscuous. Do you want to use that word?
Which is absolutely zero. Yeah, you've been dabbling for quite a while now, and so where are you at? What's the latest?
When you just quickly, I will go and do this stuff, but you're talking about how you have so little experience with speakers, right?
Yeah.
I am amazed how long you put up with those, because your Laney cab, right, had 70, 80 Celestions in it.
That's 4 of them.
Which, they're all right as like entry-level speakers, but they're frequently disliked. But, you know?
Yeah.
They're like the cheapest kind of full-on Celestion you can get. It's like, you're just in the Celestion proper territory at that point.
It's okay when you don't know. You hear me? You feel me? You know, it was a speaker, and I had 4 of them, and they were producing loud, noise, and I was like, this is fantastic. But slowly I started to realise, not just obviously the head wasn't my cup of tea, but that perhaps the speakers were a part of it, and indeed the cabinet as well, and what it's made of and stuff. And then, of course, you and I started to talk, and you'd already been getting, quite far down that road. And I thought, right, okay, let's make a big change. And I got myself some speakers and a different cabinet and a completely different head. But that's as far as I've got.
That's quite a bit. That's changing everything.
It did, and they're pretty good speakers. But
it was the thing, like, you never wanted to experiment, right? I was constantly experimenting. You were just like, you just had your Laney cab with your 7080s, and they're known for, like, they've only got wee magnets, they're kind of bright, they're not warm sounding speakers. But you just, this probably sounds like criticism, but this is also, I think, probably really good for playing, is you just still got your head down and played tons of stuff, rather than I'm like reading speaker reviews on the gear page and looking at little numbers about hertz and resonant frequencies and all this kind of stuff,
Yeah, it's almost, you're almost painting that sort of scenario where pedals or no pedals, and people that say, how can you play just plugging straight into an amp? That's, some people just can't. No reverb, what? Just the simplest thing, reverb or a wee bit of delay. And some people feel they need it, and they're playing because it makes them better. And that's kind of almost what you're kind of saying, that you feel that, I need better speakers, I need to research because it'll make me possibly even a better player. But of course, now having changed, I realise, right, there's a lot of truth in what you were talking about. There's definitely something in that. I suppose it's like pickups as well.
I wouldn't say that. I wasn't thinking if I get the right speaker combination, it'll make me a better player. I think it's more that might be true for some people, but I think I'd gotten basically sidetracked off of actually playing and became so interested in tone,
Right. So you did. I suppose it literally became a distraction.
Yeah. Because it's all testing at that point, Stephen. This stuff with me, you've seen that drawer I showed you full of pickups as well, right? It all gets hold of you, and you're all just like, it just becomes you're doing some kind of testing, but never really, really playing, because you're listening critically for something, right? Kind of cocking your head, half closing your eyes, being like,
yeah,
is that doing the thing that I wanted to do? Whereas this whole time, I feel like you were just flat out just playing music, right? Just getting better, recording way more music than me, just really doing the stuff. Whereas I got totally sidetracked onto that whole, with speakers, with cabs, with pickups, the whole thing, just with tone. I think you're right when you talk about that. my impression is of pedal peoples that are a bit like that with the old, this might be the one.
Yeah, I think
still don't sound like my heroes, and I've got $5,000 worth of gear to play through. Maybe
I
this
think
one.
That's they guys definitely fall into that. And I think they're. I don't. Maybe I should take back it'll make me a better player, but
I was offended. I don't know about those guys, but
yeah. Well, I think one time I thought it. I thought, oh, I need effects, I need reverb.
Mm-hmm. I used to just need. You've seen me go through the change, right? I used to just need reverb because I was used to it, and it's like a little safety net or a security blanket.
Yeah.
If you're really used to it, and if it just adds a little grease in the wheels and just, it just makes things just flow together a little bit easier, kind of cover up any little awkward mistakes, right? It definitely does you some favours, makes you sound a bit more polished, right? Because everything's got reverb on a record.
True, yeah. I never heard it when I was playing at speed. I thought, I don't really get it. It felt like it was always at the end of whatever I played. Oh, there's the reverb.
Yeah.
And amongst a bunch of notes, fast notes. I thought, well, it's not really there. And I think for a long time I didn't have any effects really. I think I've only got one pedal. And it's a reverb. It happens to be a reverb pedal. I did enjoy playing with it when I had Delaney. It was on all the time until Delaney developed its problem with the effects loop, and then I just went dry for years.
Right, I guess that's actually kind of similar to me, because when we met at college and all that, I was used to my little Marshall combo, and before that, I guess the ubiquitous PV Bandit, right?
Yes.
I just always had reverb, but yeah, when I got older and it took buying the Splon amp, right, the Splon competition, which sounds like a total beast, but they don't have good effects loops. It changes the sound quite a lot. It's always been the weak point of a Splon. And so after struggling for a little while trying to put different effects things into the loop to get my old reverb back, it always sounded better with just the loop completely bypassed. You can press a little button and actually just bypass that whole card right in the amp. Cool. It sounded so much better, and I just had to get used to it. I was like, I don't want that weird stale sound that it gets when you turn the loop on. So it was like necessity, And
yeah.
It was brutal for quite a while, getting used to not having that kind of grease in between the notes. But I think it made me better, man. I really do. I think it made me more accurate.
I think it does, yeah. No question from my standpoint on that. I think any kind of delay, especially, I mean, we were talking delays, and we're talking like the wet stuff, but we just like the guys that I know that they've got quite a few pedals, or even one of the Line 6 stuff, the boards.
A board with a bunch of kind of, yeah.
I mean, there's endless possibilities as well there, and great for direct recording. Having said that, some of them sound pretty good, but yeah, I think
you're just saying all this because Joe's going to listen to this, right?
That's absolutely correct.
And we do love you, Joe. It's just that we like a very dry sound. It sounds, and now that's everything. I just love that raw, just you and your amp, just nothing else.
Yeah. The thing is, Joe, he likes that. He's told me countless times he's went home, couldn't be bothered with the pedals, plugged straight into his Laney and went, yeah, this is good.
Oh, stay that way, Joe. Stay that way. Stay with us.
Don't leave us, Joe. We love you, man.
That's how your amp really sounds, and I bet it's fucking brilliant.
It's more the response, though, right, from the Valve amp.
Response meaning?
Just when you're playing it yourself from your fingers, you get that
more
feel.
The feel of it, right?
A feel, yeah.
Yeah, all of that as well. It's suddenly so much more like live and like right under your fingertips, right? Like every tiny little movement you can be heard and felt, right? It's immediate.
One note can produce so much different, sounds.
So I feel like last time we did our little podcast thing, we probably upset everyone who can't afford a Japanese Ibanez. Maybe some Gibson people.
Well, they're always upset.
Shut it. And so I guess this time we're going to paint in broader strokes, since now we've just upset everyone who's got a pedal board, which is basically seems to be everyone except for you and me.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we are the black sheep, the outcasts.
I just always want that total raw tone. I just don't want to have loads of little toys plugged in, right? My amp sounds great on its own. It sounds so raw.
I will say my amp must have better loops in it than yours does. If yours changes so much that you notice it.
It's a famous, I guess infamous downside to the Splon. It always has been.
That's a shame. It is a shame. I mean, it is a shame. There's no two ways about it. I mean, they are great effects. Joe came over one night and stuck his a TC Electronics.
Joe is Steve's friend of many years, who plays guitar in the band Liberty Fallen.
That's right.
Sorry, carry on.
I'm trying to remember the name of the delay. What's the TC Electronics delay called? Flashback.
Okay.
And so I turned my back, and we were doing a kind of A and B type thing, and it really was good. I've got to say it was very good. I didn't really hear that the tone changed that much, and that's when I was all set. I thought, that's the one, I'm going to get it, and then we stuck it in channel 1, and it just.
So wait a minute, what were you doing? A/B? Were you turning your loop on and off, or the pedal on and off?
Turning the loop on and off.
Okay.
And then obviously sticking the pedal on. We did that as well. A pedal on and obviously pedal off. And pedal off, I'm just playing and I'm concentrating so hard on every note, every sound from the amp. It's like, yeah, this is the amp. And then he'd stick the pedal on and I'd be like, it still sounds like the amp. It just really said, but I've got a delay. I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Then we went, that was channel 2. And that's when we went to channel 1. And for some reason, it distorted it. It was like it was reaching that level that was in the red. It was really strange.
This is a Bogner Uberschall something jet, something blue with special lights.
That's the one. Yeah, I can't remember you being so familiar with it. That's incredible.
Say what it's called. I can't remember.
It's a Bogner Uberschall twin jet.
Right. Just like when you have trouble peeing in it.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay.
So there's no blue. It's not blue revision or something.
It's a blue revision. Yeah.
See, I know this shit. I got this.
It's the basic one. You get purple and red, I think, as well.
Okay. And so channel 1 is like your kind of plexi or 800 or kind of not that super gainy, right? It's like your less gainy channel, right?
It is the less gainy channel. You can't call it clean. You can get clean. You have to turn the gain right down and turn the volume of the channel right up for it to cope with your other channel, obviously at high volumes. And then you turn the gain up and you've got, Van Halen, basically. It's just right up there. It's a pretty cool. I don't use it half as much actually, but it's pretty cool tone from it. But yeah, it didn't like it.
So for some reason that. What you're saying is that channel 1 falls apart when you use the loop.
When I used that pedal in the loop, and when I used another, the Reverb Hall of Fame, TC Electronics Hall of Fame also had the same result, and a Boss digital delay, not as much, but it was still there. My Boss Reverb, it doesn't do it at all. It's fine in the loop.
So it's got to be something to do with that whole +10 minus something dB setting, right? You can. Yeah. There's a thing, isn't there? I forget which way around it works.
Yeah, I need to get those pedals back and run them through. And Joe, right now, and just go through the whole thing again, because we weren't that thorough about this. When it started doing its farting. That's the technical term there.
Sure.
So that'll be interesting to get that back to see if I can get it going again. But I'm not in a rush, because back to what we're talking about, we're so happy now, the two of us, just to plug in and play. There's so many segues here. We could start talking about another purchase we both have, which has lots of effects in it built into it. in the guise of the Yamaha THR-10X. But we want to talk about speakers.
I feel like we're going to have to do a THR-10X like show.
Probably, yeah. Right, hold that thought.
Love that wee box, but we'll get to that at some point.
We'll get to that. But let's go back to speakers anyway. We've big enough tangent.
But hey, this time it was a musical tangent. How great is that? It was about gear rather than pedophiles.
How many people are going to be disappointed that it was that?
Well, at least I've given them a little check this time. I've still mentioned the word pedophiles twice.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So the last speaker that I screwed around with it's a Celestion Century Vintage. The reason that I wanted to get hold of it is it's kind of a weird thing for them. So almost all the speakers that we use that are big Celestion speakers are ceramic magnet, right? Like that big ring on the back is a big ceramic ring. And just like pickups, right, the different magnet material actually makes a different sound, right? For some reason, those ceramic, it's probably just that it's cheapest, I don't know, but that's the most ubiquitous kind you get is a ceramic magnet on those. I've had one Alnico speaker, it's a Celestion Alnico Gold. That was the most expensive speaker they made. It cost some ridiculous amount of money. I just wanted to see, this is like their flagship. I think it was $400 or something just for like a speaker.
Oh, wow.
And I just wanted to know, like, if it's that, is it brilliant, right? Is it just like the best speaker in the world? So I have tried one of those, and it was good, but it's a much more vintagey tone, right? It's a much more 50s kind of tone.
Oh, right.
Yeah. It was kind of fun, to be honest, man, to plug like a high gain splawn into that. It actually gave me some pretty cool tones. I don't know, it was it's maybe not as tight as you would want. You can kind of expect, right, if it's built for 50s type warmth, that you're probably not going to get like great chug out of it or whatever,
Yeah.
So there's this new thing. Most speakers we ever have are ceramic, and there's this neodymium is this kind of wonder magnet material that people are slowly shifting to. You need a lot less of it, so speakers can be lots lighter.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so gigging musicians want it to work out, because the speakers are, I don't know, they're at least half the weight. It might be less. But it's a new thing for manufacturers, so there's stuff to iron out. You can't just change the magnet and have it still sound like a kick-ass speaker. Mm-hmm. So Celestion's done two of these, at least for guitar, so the first one they did was just called the Century, and it really was not received well. You can kind of tell from the sound of it that they were more just excited to be making a neodymium speaker, and it wasn't really tuned for guitar the way that all their others are. It was kind of harsh and bright. Had some good characteristics, like the neodymium's known for being fast tracking, as in, when you pick really fast and all that, it's tight, it keeps hold of what you're doing.
Okay, I'm interested.
Yeah, but it just it didn't have that shaped EQ. Like if you ever look at the graphs on somewhere like Celestion, they're so different from hi-fi graphs. They've got huge peaks and troughs because it's a different thing. You're not trying to perfectly reproduce the sound of a guitar, right? Which sounds terrible on it. So
I totally know what you're talking, because I did all this, but when I was looking into the speakers that I've currently got,
right, you were shaping up for your green bags.
Yeah, and
it's all over the
website
place.
looking at stuff. Yeah.
So they hadn't quite gotten the hang of that yet, and so these were not well received. They didn't do too well. They just kind of sold them out, I think, on budget, and away they went. But more recently, and it's still not that recent, I think they actually did this about 5 years ago. I just haven't really, they weren't in my world. I didn't know they were around. But yeah, they more recently did a sort of second version called the Century Vintage. Right, the first one's just the Century. This one's the Century Vintage. So I've been playing around with that, man, and it's such a good speaker. They've really nailed it. It's awesome. And what is even more exciting about it is you can tell with the name and with being Celestion that they've kind of based it on the V30, the Vintage 30, right, which is their biggest speaker. Right? They're just in fucking everything.
Right, yeah, of course, yeah.
And I've had tons of those. I always eventually get annoyed. They famously have that kind of nasal upper mid spike. Yeah. That's supposed to let you cut through a band and all the rest of it, right? Because it's like, this is the slice of sound that's for guitar and it comes right through everyone else's sound. But I always get tired of it, find it fatiguing. And so they've managed to kind of iron that out at the same time, and they've kind of fixed two speakers at once.
Oh wow.
So it has the kind of cool stuff about a Vintage 30, but they've taken care of that, and it has the better parts of being a neodymium, but still sounds like a really warm, characterful, gnarly guitar speaker.
And are these speakers, are they priced crazy high? Or are they reasonable?
No, they're reasonable. I think actually because people were wary of them. Again, my impression is that it was kind of a flop.
Could be a good thing for us though, right?
Yeah. It is, seriously. Places like Parse Express and Amazon, I think, is where I got mine. They were like on a kind of blowout. They're available.
Sorry, I always think it's funny when you buy stuff like that from Amazon. It just doesn't sound right.
Well, because it's guitar stuff. Yeah,
it's Amazon,
It's meant to, I mean, you can buy your week's food on Amazon. You get anything on there, right? They have everything. So yeah, I love that speaker. I've got that in a little 1x12 ported cab at the moment, and yeah, man, that's real fun to play through. It's just warm enough. It chugs, It doesn't have that spike, but it still has character. Yeah. It does sound like a fixed Vintage 30, and that's quite aside from the whole thing about it being much lighter, so...
Well, yeah, I remember you talking about the Vintage 30s ages ago, and you had a problem with them almost from day one, I think. And the thing is, they're in a lot of stuff.
They are.
I think I might get this. I'm trying to think. The cab that's for the Uberschall, I think it is called an Uber cab. I think that might be V30s.
That's no surprise, right? Everybody uses them.
Yeah, I think all their oversized cabs are V30. Yeah, exactly. Everybody sticks them in somehow, which is maybe it's not a bad thing. It's like the go-to speaker, and then you can make up your mind, right, if you move on from that. But at least you're getting a better speaker, say, than the 7080s that I had.
Yeah, no, I mean it's a proper. It costs the same as other Celestions. It's a proper,
Exactly. Yeah.
It's not a budget speaker or anything. It just, I guess most people must like it, otherwise they wouldn't be used in everything. But I don't know. It just always annoyed me with that little peak. That little upper mid peak. It just sounded too nasal. You might like it for because sometimes I'll swap speakers 4 or 5 times in a day just to try an A/B stuff and see what I'm liking, you know. And
Yeah.
with the V30, it would sometimes be, you'd like it for 10 minutes, you know, or 15 minutes. You'd hear that kind of raucous quality to it coming through. And you think, yeah, guitar. But it's longer periods that become a problem. You sit and practice for an hour. Like, oh man, it's just like someone on your shoulder constantly going meh, meh in your ear, you know. It eventually wears you down.
Back to Joe again. Joe,
he does that.
He does that a lot. Yeah, I tried to tell him to stop.
Cut that out, Joe.
People look, you know, it's natural. He's got a 2x12 Laney with, obviously, I would presume 70, 80s.
Fuck, have I just slagged off Joe's gear again?
Yeah, pretty much. And by gear, he means obviously musical. He, though, played through an orange with V30s, and straight away he was like, holy shit.
So I've slagged off his old gear and what might be his new gear.
Yeah, it's pretty much. Yeah.
Fucking brilliant. Thanks for the heads up on that, Steve.
No worries. He does now officially hate you. Yeah.
Love you, Joe.
Yeah.
Sorry, you were going to say something real before I sidetracked you there. Or was it just that he's played that orange and thought it was great?
No, it was just that. It's that progression. It's a classic example of, you know, he's got those speakers that, yeah, they weren't brilliant. And then he played through some V30s and thought, yes, that'll do me. I think the orange cabs are quite popular. I've seen a lot of people using them. So I think they're kind of the speakers to one side. The actual cabinet itself is quite hot property. I don't know what it's made of. I don't know anything about it at all. You probably do.
Well, I think literally everyone uses voidless Baltic birch.
I was going to say it's probably birch of some description.
3/4 inch. I know that theirs look thicker, but I think that just might be look.
It does look thicker. Yeah, that's right. It does look really thick, like an inch or something, maybe more than that.
Yeah, I think that's just the way they cut it and the way they kind of bevel it at the front and stuff. I think basically everyone uses that 3/4 inch Baltic birch stuff. But again, from my experimenting, that doesn't seem to just follow. It seems to come a lot down to design of the cab and dimensions, you know, not as much what it's made of, because everyone uses that same thing, but like how deep is it, how high, you know, all this stuff, and actual construction seems to play a part.
Yeah.
I played that. Had that Mills cab for a while, a Mills 2x12.
Yep, I remember your Mills. Yeah.
Like back in the Harmony Central days, that was, if you had a Mills, you were like royalty. That was the shit, because they're so expensive. And again, it was like that Celestion. I just was like, if this is meant to be the best, I just want to hear it. You know, I want to hear it. And it was totally different from other cabs, and it was all just down to construction. This guy does some weird stuff inside. I opened it up obviously to have a look and to change speakers multiple times in that way that I do.
Yeah.
And he does all this metal bracing inside, and he has this strange kind of perforated baffle thing that separates the two speakers. It goes from front to back inside the cab, and it's got big kind of 3 or 4 inch holes cut through it.
Separate, like dividing the speakers?
Yeah, if you imagine, if it's that was
Right
a
down the
2x12, yeah, if you imagine there's like a board inside that separates the two, but he does have holes in it.
Okay.
And, you know, I think all of this was designed to stop standing waves inside a cab, which is how you get that kind of boom sound that you know on certain notes.
Yeah.
But it was just incredibly tight sounding. It didn't sound like a box at all. It just sounded so tight.
And you still have it?
No. Steve, come on.
I knew you didn't have it.
You just want to show me up. You might make me sound like a flipper when I've had some of the same stuff for years.
But everything you said was, you know, praising the cabinet. So it's obviously the reason you got rid of it is...
The reason I got rid of it is that totally suits like an absolute full-on 9-string Death King, right? It's like... I just cannot overstate how tight that cab is.
Okay, that would be good for those guys.
And I thought that's what I wanted. I thought surely the tightest, but I don't want smudge, I want the tightest possible response.
Yeah. You still want clarity, yeah.
Yeah, the thing with the Mills though was it didn't actually sound big at all. It's actually, in terms of inches, I think it's the biggest or one of the biggest oversized 2x12s you can get. It's a huge box.
Right.
But it doesn't sound chunky in that way that you expect from a bigger cab because of all this metal bracing and the baffle and the construction. It's all designed around kind of removing the cab from the equation. It sounds almost as if you would imagine your speakers would sound literally like on a plank. You know what I mean? Like with no cab.
So yeah, he's made it as big as he can, so that there's so much space inside for it to travel. Well,
I don't know. I think it's also to do with his design of, like I say, breaking up the standing waves, not letting any boom come into it. Like actually designing that out of it.
Yeah,
has got to be involved, and it's what I really wanted was, especially at that time, I was going for the big Gary Moore tone, like Parisian Walkways, Still Got the Blues album, because this would be when I was getting into Les Pauls and stuff, and I wanted that, and that's so different. It sounds huge, right? It's like my setup now. It's EVM speakers inside a Marshall cab, right? Just like 400 watt ridiculous PA speakers in a lot of cubic space, and an old design, right? The Marshall cabs aren't super tight, and you can hear that they're a big box, and they're kind of woody sounding, and they have some kind of chunk to them and knock to them, So that's why I got rid of the Mills. It didn't have that. I want like that neck pickup, huge fat Les Paul sound,
Yeah.
And it would not do that at all. But it would be mega tight for metal.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's the downside for us too. Straight away. Joe would probably love it.
Joe. I feel like Joe's on this show.
He's got his 7-string, right?
He does. Oh, of course, we upset him as well because he's a premium buyer, right? So we also upset him about that. That's like 3 things with him.
It's so true.
He's like a quarter of our listeners.
Yeah, I think the Uberschall head, it's got a bit of a 7-string, 8-string reputation. Those guys seem to go towards that because it's got that crazy depth control, which when engaged does the whole house shakes. It just rumbles. It's absolutely insane.
Is that like a resonance, or does it also have a resonance?
I suppose it's more like I suppose it is more like a resonance. Yeah, but it's super sensitive. It really, it's just crazy stuff. And just a normal 6-string, you just do that one muted E, and it just hits you in the chest. Pretty hard.
So it controls how much kind of thunk or chunk you get to that bottom end.
Yeah, totally. And this is obviously, we're not talking gain at all here. I mean, the gain's usually set pretty mild, but halfway maybe. This thing just turns it on. It just gives you that oomph. And of course, I've got an oversized cab anyway.
Yep, a Zilla.
And Zilla cabinet down in England, and but we never really, with Joe having a 7-string, we never really put it to the test. That's maybe something else we should try next time he comes over. Maybe do a wee video as well, actually, or an audio recording of it and stick it in the next podcast. That'd be kind of cool.
So you and he haven't played his 7-string through your Uberschall?
No, we have once, but I don't think I messed about with the depth control.
To see if you could knock anyone over?
Exactly.
Okay.
I think his 7-string went on for a little bit, and I was like, yeah. Let's move on.
I tell you as well, the guy who bought the Mills from me, I think he'll have found it absolutely perfect. He was playing baritone.
Oh, right. Okay, he'd have loved it.
So I thought that was a match made in heaven. That is perfect for him, and I bet that just worked out beautifully because, yeah, he's like an octave down, right, and just incredible clarity and tightness. That was probably exactly what he needed.
That sounds it. Yeah, definitely sounds it.
It just didn't give me my big fat sobbing Les Paul tone that I wanted.
And so now you're down to a 1x12?
No.
Oh, is it in a 2x12?
Is what in a 2x12?
Your speaker, your one speaker that you were just talking about?
Oh, the Century Vintage. Yeah, that is in a 1x12. It's based on the Jackson Ampworks design, which has big vertical slots on the left and the right. They're about an inch or an inch and a half wide. They're kind of ports, but they're not tuned to like round ports are on like hi-fi speakers and stuff. So that is a 1x12, but I also have the Marshall 1961, which is it's a 2x12, but it's the same size as a 4x12. So it's just like a full-size Marshall cab, but it just has diagonally just 2 speakers in it. They're kind of rare. Nobody has them.
Yeah, I remember seeing a picture. Yeah, he sent me some clips of that. It looks kind of cool, actually. I thought it looked quite smart.
Yeah, and that does sound big. That has that big tone to it, So that I've got EVMs in that, and that sounds enormous. That gives me what I was looking for. That big kind of Joe Bonamassa as well type of sound, really muscular, fat Les Paul tone.
Okay, cool. That's great.
So I've got what I was looking for eventually. I just had to fiddle around a lot to get there.
It did. It took a wee while, didn't it? Yeah, you went through a lot.
It did, yeah. And it's hard to get out of it completely, to not look at things and think, how would that be,
I'm going to buy 12 more cabins tomorrow.
Well, that is the thing, yeah. It's nice having a few cabs, and just depends what your mood is, It's like a guitar, you just connect to the one.
The one that, yeah.
It's going to do what you want that day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In a perfect world, that would be fantastic just to have that, wouldn't it? Just one big head that you love and just loads of cabinets with speakers that you love.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be quite sweet.
What else you got on your wee bit of paper?
I've got the Kemper.
Like, fuck that. What else you got?
The Charvel.
And how do you feel about talking about the Charvel?
I don't think I'll be talking too much about it, to be honest.
But you promised.
I can't imagine I would. Yeah.
What I thought would be interesting is, so I love still my San Dimas, right? Japanese San Dimas from like 5 years ago or something. That's kind of gradually snuck in, become maybe my number 1 or number 2 guitar, right?
Uh-huh.
You've had one. I know you didn't totally get on with it. You still liked it.
I did still like it, yeah.
So
slightly regretted.
Oh,
anyway.
Interesting.
Well, it was what was there, to not like about it? It was another hot-rodded, older-bodied
Super Strat.
Yeah. And
Floyd
I thought,
Rose.
well, Floyd Rose, yeah. Let's not talk about Floyd Rose.
It's another show, Steve. Keep it.
Oh, that bar.
Bury it way down.
Sorry. Suppress.
So I thought what would be interesting is if you can make some kind of comparison, knowing that I love that guitar, but I'm also aware that that's complete other end of the spectrum for Charvel.
That's a good thing. That's a good point to make. Let's talk about, yeah.
I love it. I can tell that the pro mods and stuff they're kind of raw, or they're a little bit rough and ready, very simple.
Yeah.
And this Guthrie Govan Charvel that you played is like from the custom shop. It's, I don't know, £2,500.
Yep. £2,500
British pounds. So yeah, make some comparisons. What's it like? Does the neck really different? What? Give me some of that shit.
Right, yeah, I suppose. Okay, yeah, so yeah, it was the Guthrie Govan signature model, and it was really nice. More specifically, the neck was very nice. And
Okay, so just like the San Dimas, the neck is the standout.
yeah, I think definitely like the San Dimas, which I have owned. I mean, if we talk about that for 2 seconds, if you're talking price point, it was the major factor. Most people that picked that guitar up of mine, Japanese made San Dimas, I think I paid £500 for it. Most people that picked it up just couldn't believe the neck. They were just like, "This is on a guitar that costs what?
Yeah,
This isn't right." And even the owner of this Guthrie Govan Charvel will still, to this day, state that that's one of the best necks he's ever played.
okay.
Was on a Japanese-made Charvel San Dimas.
Yeah, that was the thing as well. Across the whole net when those came out, it was just everyone was like, "Can you believe the necks on these?"
I couldn't. I really couldn't. It was just so smooth. It was so unfinished, so worn, so, I don't know, so playable. It was just lovely.
The big thing seemed to be those rolled edges. Right? That really got people. They rolled the edge of the fretboard, which is kind of what happens to very vintage guitars, but they did it right in the factory.
I've seen
No sharp edges, and they dressed the end of the frets to make them all rounded.
Yeah,
and,
I see Ibanez are doing that now with the premium and the prestige guitars.
They're doing rolled boards?
They're all beautifully, yeah. They're all their fret ends. They call it the premium treatment.
Let's not get into that again.
So anyway,
if we do one more minute on Ibanez, we're going to get in trouble.
So yeah, I went over, had a go. Had quite a go actually. I played it for a number of hours.
Oh really? Okay.
I did, yeah. I was playing it through an EVH 5150 50 watt head,
Okay.
and cabinet.
Is that the wee one, the little small lunchy one? It's not quite lunchbox, but
It's not quite lunchbox, but yeah, it is smaller than the big head. Yeah,
right, it's smaller than your standard DVH head.
it's still 3 channels, and I think 1 and 2 share EQ. I think that might be how it works, just to get the space down.
Charvel.
It had a great neck. It had a roasted maple neck.
Fashionable.
But it definitely does something because of, I've obviously had very briefly a roasted maple neck guitar, and there is something about it. It's super, super smooth. Not quite the same as the sort of satin finish that's, we're familiar with.
Is it oiled finish?
I think it's definitely oiled. I would say it's definitely oiled. There's no varnish or anything on that neck.
So again, that's a bit like the San Dimas, right?
It's definitely like the San Dimas. Totally, yeah. But it was wicked fast, really super fast.
How kind of thick and chunky was it feel like in the hand versus, say, the San Dimas again?
I don't think it was as thick and chunky, but I could be talking like a millimetre, but I could notice that it was. I think the shape is different as well. The actual shape of the neck.
I bet it is. The profile, we call that.
The profile, yeah. The fret edges, yeah, they were all lovely. I don't know how much I took notice of it at the time, but
well, hey, that's kind of part of the point, right? If you didn't notice,
they were probably absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, they're probably doing the job.
And once again, given the price point, you would be expecting them to be absolutely gleaming and lovely and round. And
sure.
What else was? Why?
What's the board, by the way? Is that just a rosewood? What is it?
No, it's roasted maple, I think.
Oh, so the neck and the board are roasted maple.
Yeah, I believe
it might even be one piece or something.
It might be one piece. I'm not too sure.
Okay.
What I loved about it is it's non-locking tremolo, so it's locking tuners.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Locking tuners, but a lovely little sort of vintage-looking. I think it was based on an early Floyd, but they couldn't quite get something working or get the Floyd, but Charvel had basically ended up going, making their own. So it's their own creation. It doesn't actually even say anything on it. I was looking at it and I thought, well, surely you would put Charvel on it or something, but there was nothing totally clean.
While it was being kind of prototyped and developed, I would occasionally see little videos of Guthrie Govan talking about that. So I do remember something to do with that. Like he'd found this old original kind of half-size Floyd Rose, and he just liked it for some reason. It really worked for him, right?
Yeah.
And so he kind of got them to implement that on his signature.
It's gorgeous. I mean, in terms of usability, it's just super smooth. It was really nice. I think it's got the oh gosh, what's that thing called that you can hardtail it at the back?
Tremolo. No.
Tremolo, no. It doesn't begin with an N. Oh no, I suppose it doesn't begin with an N. It had that, so Paul demonstrated that. That was pretty cool, and quite easy to.
So you lock that down, and then you're not. It'll do stuff like if you do a bend, the other strings won't go flat and that kind of stuff, right?
Exactly. Yeah. You can lock it right down.
So as well, when you say the trem was lovely and it has no locking nut, you're also, you're an absolute bandit on the tremolo. I wouldn't let you near my guitars anymore. And did you do any of that stuff, or were you just more like? Because I can't imagine if it has no locking nut that you can actually do dive bombs and stuff. Surely you can just do.
It stayed in tune, man. It stayed in tune.
You did some of that stuff?
I've got to say, it was really impressive. That's the first thing I did. I said, "There's no locking nuts." Well, sleeves get rolled up.
Screw you! I'm gonna make your guitar.
Let's put that to the test. And it really stood up really well to some good abuse.
Wow.
But the treble itself was so nice to use, just for subtle vibrato. It was really, really sweet for that. It was really, really quite a pleasure to use. The guitar, after those points, is quite a simple guitar. A noticeable absence was what was on the Sir guitar of Guthrie's was the little
the blower,
a little blower switch. I don't remember it. I'm trying to think if it's got that.
Again, people can look at that shit up if they want to know that stuff. Could it maybe be like you pull up the volume or something, so it'd be something you didn't notice?
I don't think it's got it. I think I'm getting confused because Paul's friend was over that day with his Sir, and it had it. That's what had it. I'm pretty sure that's what the guitar of the day had the blower switch on it, but I don't think the Guthrie Govan one has it.
Paul is Steve's other friend and plays in a band with Steve.
Yes. So, it was a lovely guitar. It was one of those things where, if you ask me, is it worth £2,500 Great British pounds? Well, no, it probably isn't worth that. I mean, that's a lot of money to spend on a guitar. One guitar.
It's a little bit mental, Paul.
Paul is mental.
Right.
But in a good way. But it was good. I mean, I've played the expensive guitars that were just for me. I mean, I'm sure they were great guitars for someone else, but I was just like, no, I don't think so. But this was good. It was really, really sweet. And I guess with his name associated with it, you kind of think, well, it's Guthrie Govan, isn't it? It's going to be brilliant. But no, it's not. It could be just that his name's on it and it's just a piece of shit. But it really wasn't. It was genuinely a lovely, lovely guitar to play.
What are the pickups like? Could you compare them to anything else? I would guess, team. I just guess from Guthrie that their medium output, for example, kind of maybe a bit paffy or something. I doubt he would have something huge.
I would say they're definitely paffy. That much is because it felt familiar. Mm-hmm. Running through the EVH on its lead setting, which is a lot of gain. That thing's got quite a bit of gain. They just loved it. It sounded great. Clear. It sounded clear.
Oh, that's good.
Whereas I know some really hot pickups with that amount of distortion through that particular amp, I think would be quite buzzy.
Turn it a wee bit of mush, get a bit muddy.
Yeah, a bit muddy. I don't know what they are either, the pickups. I don't even know if Paul knew at the time.
Yeah, they might be a whole new thing.
He probably did. I just didn't ask. It's just like guitar.
Give us it.
But it was super nice to play. I've got to say.
Well, that sounds cool, man. I mean, you also, I don't know how long ago you played. What did you say? You played other Sirs, right? You haven't played the Guthrie Sir, of course, have you?
I have. It was a long time ago.
The actual Guthrie. So, is it too long to make a comparison?
No, I could make a comparison. I would, yeah. I think the Sir one was. It felt like it had a wider board. It just felt like a bigger neck, not a bigger neck in terms of the profile and the back of it, just in width. I think
wide, like the Ibanez way, where it's
just
like you've
really
got a big
wide,
flat place to play around on.
But yeah, I guess the Charvel version did feel a little dinky. You know, it just felt more stratty almost. You know, in terms of its dimensions. Whereas the Sir one was you know, kind of like the big modern Sir that they make. You know, it just felt like a big super hot rodded, you know, guitar. The body on the Charvel one feels a little smaller. Definitely more Strat like.
Well, that works for me.
Yeah, it worked for me. You know, it was really, really nice. But I'll pick anything up.
Well, no, yeah, but you know, to keep playing it, that's the thing, isn't it?
Comfort. You know,
you'll also put anything down. You're like, oh, no thanks.
Yeah, it was like the RG. Back to Ibanez, but you know, the RG's quite a big body. There's quite a lot of wood there.
This is because I've such a long history with Ibanez, right? And I've still got so many in a cupboard.
Yeah,
but being a wee guy, right, like 5.5 feet. You could never quite get that Vi thing, you know, that I've got gems and RGs and all that stuff, and it's actually, like you say, it's actually quite a big body, you know.
It is, but it's comfortable.
Sure,
I would never say that was an uncomfortable body.
No, it's nicely designed.
Not that this. I'm not saying that the Sir Govan was an uncomfortable body. It really wasn't. It's quite a nice sculpted thing. But the two guitars are quite different, for sure. But both still built for the one thing, you know, to be a hot rodded Strat.
It's funny, isn't it, that he doesn't go for... The one thing that's similar to me is that neither of them are showy, right?
They're totally dressed down, aren't they?
Yeah, they're very simple, like tools, right, for playing incredible guitar on.
I will say, in the flesh, Paul's the Guthrie Govan Charvel is a nicer finish in the flesh, and the more time I spent with it, the more I started to really, really like it. Of course, this is coming from a guy who owns a vintage N4, which has got like dirty bits in it and stuff like that. You know, it's supposed to look like it's worn in, but you know, the N4 is just a plank of wood, right? There's no finish, zero, apart from a big sticker.
Okay, I thought at least that was some kind of oil finish, but maybe it is just like straight off the bandsaw and onto your guitar.
Well, it might have an oil finish, but what I mean is there's no paint involved at all. You know, there's no real finish to speak of. So I like that. I'm attracted to that, but obviously I like beautiful guitars as well. But the more time I spent with it, I thought, this is nice. And it's just the top again. It's just the top that has that. Like the rest of the guitar is just the wood.
So you're saying the top has some sort of finish on it, and the rest doesn't?
The top has a particular finish, and the rest of it's just the basswood, isn't it?
Okay, I didn't realise. I thought the whole thing again was like, I can tell it has a separate top, like it's like some kind of maple top or something on it.
Yeah, I think it is a maple top. Yeah,
but I just thought the whole thing was kind of oiled, kind of matte, you know.
Cool guitar, nice little heel as well. The heel's different. It's got a real sort of chunk out of it, where and a really deep set screw where that's taken out. It's quite cool.
Also, they've knocked off a corner, kind of like...
yeah. I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to picture that in my head, what that was like, because I thought, this is really neat. It was really nice.
I think it's deluxe Strats that do that as well. Like almost every other Strat, you just get the big, brutal square.
Yeah.
But the deluxe Strats, they knock one corner off and shave it way down for a bit of access, a bit of smoothness.
Yeah. The deluxe Strats are nice, actually.
They're pretty hot.
Yeah.
But you're always more worried about that heel stuff than I am, right? I'm always like, listen, if Malmsteen can manage it with a brutal inch of alder down there, right? It's good enough for me.
I would say it used to be.
Yeah, you have calmed
obsessed.
on that a bit more.
Yeah, I think.
You say with your N4 with no heel. Totally barmy, bolted on.
I've got no comeback. It has no heel. There's nothing there. It's a strange guitar where you can go. It's 22 frets, but you can literally go to the last fret and do like a crazy arpeggio from that point.
Nothing in the way.
It's just nothing. There's nothing there to stop you. It is, which is cool.
Of course.
It's a pretty crazy design. But the little Samick that I've got, that's got a nice.
Listen, you're going to blow our full wad here, right? We'll get to your N4 in other episodes. We'll get to your Samick, the idea of which you stole from me in other episodes. Okay?
Oh, right.
And I'll have a long introduction of things to say about that.
You will. And then I'll interject every now and then. Hello, I've got one. It's rubbish.
I bought it just to say it's rubbish. Okay, Steve, you think that'll do it for this episode?
Yep, definitely.
And see you next time, I guess.
Yeah, see you, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I don't mean it's that they're worried about us making bombs or looking at cat porn. I think it's that they use information about you to market to you, to know which websites you go on. So, right, you're interested in shoes.
How do you know about the cat porn?
Well, that's how open Chrome is. I was able to get your browsing history very easily.
And the bomb that I've created for the cat.
Yeah, well, screw cats. I support that. I support cat bombing.